We grow when we give.
We grow when we give.
We grow when we give.
Nosotros crecemos cuando damos.
We grow when we give.
与えるとき成長する。
We grow when we give.
Welcome to ROG, Return on Generosity, a podcast celebrating generosity at work. Not financial giving, giving valuable time, alternative perspectives, and genuine collaboration. Welcome back to ROG, Return on Generosity, the podcast that shines a light on leaders who show up with purpose, generosity, and impact. I'm your host, Shannon Cassidy. And today we're talking with someone who truly embodies the combination of strategy, leadership, and heart. Jon Sichel is the Executive Vice President, General Counsel, and Head of Business Affairs for Hallmark Media Family Networks, the home of the beloved brands like Hallmark Channel, Hallmark Movies and Mysteries, and Hallmark Drama. Jon's impressive career spans major media companies like AMC Networks, Discovery Inc., and Scripps Networks Interactive, with a global footprint and strong legal and strategic backbone. At Hallmark, he's more than a legal expert. He's a guiding force behind content, partnership, and innovation. What I appreciate most about you, Jon, is your reputation. You are beloved by all the friends we have in common. And I just want to thank you for being so consistently generous that you light people up. Welcome to ROG.
Thank you. It is so great to be here. I'm honored to participate today, follow in great footsteps of those great, generous leaders. Funny also.
Oh my gosh, right?
Yeah.
That's an interesting thing to think about. We've never really talked about humor as an act of generosity, but it really is. You know, it brings levity and lightness and perspective to situations.
I believe that so much. If you put me on the spot, I will not be funny, but I believe in disarming. I believe that humor in the most stressful situations can change the dynamic. It just makes us much more approachable, much more fun.
Yeah.
And makes any environment. My hero was my dad for sure, and my mom, but my dad was always funny in the most serious situations. And I hope I carried that through with my kids as well. Silliness.
Yeah.
Just not taking ourselves too seriously is such an important and generous way of living through the world.
Yes, and it's relatable. And I think it just makes us all take a breath, like we're not going to do this perfectly. So let's just all enjoy the ride, So tell us a little bit about your background. Where were you raised? Tell me more about these wonderful parents.
Sure. I hope not to bore anybody too much. So I'll try to go as quickly as possible. I'm a big New Jersey fan. I always said if there was ever a civil war against New Jersey, I would take New Jersey's side. I grew up in sort of Northwest New Jersey, first 13 years in a small town called Springfield, and then in Short Hills, went to Melbourne High School, which is not that interesting other than Anne Hathaway is one of our alums. And stayed in New Jersey for college. I went to Princeton, and my parents were born in New Jersey. My grandparents were born there. So we are like from the earth of New Jersey. After I graduated, I had to get out of New Jersey. So I went to Singapore, halfway around the world.
I was going to say way out of New Jersey.
Yes, way out. Although it's very similar to New Jersey because everybody speaks English and there are shopping malls at every corner. But I really needed a break, and it was a fantastic break of just exploring Southeast Asia, learning a different culture, which ultimately led to some great learning and lessons that helped me later in my career. Went to law school, went to Harvard, so came back to Boston. Long stories, but ended up in Los Angeles by mistake. I always thought I would spend my whole life in New York, near where I grew up, but my first job moved me to Los Angeles when I didn't expect it. They said, we have a great opportunity in LA and we're taking your New York job away. So worked at a law firm, didn't love it, met somebody who knew Joan Rivers randomly and said, why don't you come and worked for us, and that led me into the entertainment world.
What about siblings? Do you have siblings?
I have a great older sister who kind of led the way. We're close, very different, I'd say, in our personalities, but we have just learned to navigate. My dad, who was my hero, passed away sadly last September, and it's brought us closer with our mom and really made me appreciate all that my parents, my experiences have done to get me to where I am today. And life has its ups and downs, but I have learned to really look at the positive.
There's a choice, right, on what we focus on and what we pay attention to. And then I also think that when we have the privilege of having someone like your father in our lives, like the best thing we can do is to take their greatest qualities, like his humor,
Yes.
and intentionally share that with other people,
I
right? Because it's just like a way to honor that person and keep their spirit alive.
I agree. I think one thing I learned from him, among many things, is that you could have great skills, you could know certain math problems, which is tremendous. But being able to read a room, being able to understand an audience, being able to disarm when you need to, being able to uplift when you can, all kinds of people is, I think, the best gift that I try to give.
Absolutely. Right. Such a great way to connect with people and be real. I think like people generally respond well to authenticity, and you're
Yes.
saying like pay attention to who that person is, read the room, and then just be yourself. You know,
Yeah,
trust
exactly.
yourself to say something that might light them up or delight them or just, make them feel more comfortable or safe.
And I think one thing I have learned through working for so long and just experiencing life is that it's okay to make mistakes. It's okay to recognize that I don't know everything. I don't have to prove that I know everything. There's that cliche, hire the best people around you and you will do great. And I believe that so strongly.
We're going to jump more into generosity at work, but you're touching on something that I think is really important because when you're saying hire great people, that then means you would trust them and empower them and give them opportunities, right? Because I think sometimes people have great talent on their teams, but they don't, for whatever reason, trust them with big decisions or to sit in on meetings or whatever. Like, what do you think is going on there?
I've thought a lot about that, and I've been in different places where people appreciate smarter people around them, and also people are intimidated by that. There's an insecurity that comes from dealing with somebody who works on your team who is smarter than you. And sometimes what that means is that you work yourself out of a job because somebody else right behind you might be able to do your job better, which is scary at times. But also, I think if you are authentic, if you give credit to people who deserve it in the best organizations, you will be recognized as a great leader, as giving your team members the ability to have a voice, the ability to show what they can do, to give credit where it's due. I've seen many instances where I've contributed something and somebody else has taken credit, or somebody else did the work and somebody else took credit for it. That comes from insecurity, that comes from a place of feeling like probably you have to be better than everybody else to keep your job. And I don't believe that at all. I encourage my team members, I always have to have a voice, speak up at the table. Don't wait to be asked a question. If you know the answer, whoever, wherever you are, please chime in.
Yeah. And I think that's a really fair analysis or awareness of like you can see both sides. You can understand why some might feel that I call it like scarcity mindset of like there's only so much, say, attention or praise to go around. So I have to kind of cling on to what I have. And then there's also like the generosity of I just want to give people opportunities to shine. And it actually makes me look better when they shine. So it's literally, it's like return on generosity where I think it's counterintuitive because you think if I give what I have, in that case, it might be like praise or attention, that you would have less, but you actually have more because you are empowering people.
And I think you're making people happy at work. I mean, we spend at least one third of our life at work, and people who are miserable, who don't feel they're heard, are going to be unhappy at work, won't be contributing their best, and will, bring the rest of the team down. So I really believe in um, helping to prop people up, giving them opportunities, development, mentoring, um, wherever possible, and
Absolutely.
laughing and having fun
Yeah.
and not being so serious all the time.
Right.
Yes,
Right. I mean, and it's just an important part of a healthy culture because if people are laughing, they're probably with their guard down a little, like they're not scared or
right.
feeling
Yes,
unsafe. They're probably just in the flow and can, comment back and forth without worrying about it. And it makes it lighter, more fun. And of course, you're doing serious work too. But it's like, how are we keeping that in balance? You just mentioned mentoring, and I know you're a big fan of mentoring. Tell me more about that.
I've been mentored and mentoring for 30 years, I'd say. When I first started at Discovery back in 2004, I mentored somebody who now has gone way beyond where I am. And I feel really lucky to be in his presence when I can be. I think, I think that mentoring can, uh, is both ways. I always believe to make a meaningful mentoring relationship, we both have to teach each other something. I learn all the time from people I'm mentoring. I'm mentoring somebody at work right now who's a real up and comer, and believe that he is giving me such good advice from AI to what younger people are thinking, which is so important for our business because at Hallmark, as you can imagine, our demographic is older, and we need to keep reaching down into younger generations. And just this relationship is helping me rethink how we do things. Mentoring, it can be both formal and informal, in my view. I've had bosses who weren't necessarily my mentors, but they taught me a lot. And what I mean is that I have learned through like the 60 bosses that I've had in my life that you can learn from both good and bad managers, bosses, and people
Mm.
around you. People who use their voice for good and people who berate and feel like intimidation can propel us to
Mhm.
do better. Sometimes it can, but sometimes bad behavior, I have learned through people who unintentionally were mentoring me. I have learned that there are things in the workplace and at home that we shouldn't do because
Mhm.
they lead to bad results. I think we can learn no matter where we are in life. I think there are people who might be listening or who very well might feel differently. Like, I'm the one who can teach somebody else what to do.
Mm.
I've experienced so much that I really have all the answers. And I think um, somebody who feels that way may, but also um, may not be looking fully at the world around them and realizing that there are just always things that we can learn, not
Mm.
just skills, how to use technology, but also how to interact with people, how to interact on Teams, on Zoom, on remote working.
And even like what are some of the technology that they're using? Like I remember saying to my daughter recently, gosh, I wish I could delay send text messages just because I wake up so early. I want to reply, but I'm like, if that phone is near that person's bed, I'm gonna wake
Yeah,
them up. And she says, you can. She said, you just click the button as if you were going to send it on the way you would send like an emoji or something.
yeah.
Yeah, down you scroll down, it says delay send. I'm like, oh.
I did not know that. I am going to be learning so much
There you
today.
go.
That's so important
That's thanks
because
to Grace Cassidy right
our,
there.
our Grace deserves the credit in our next movie. Yeah, because I have a tendency to work when I can. I have 3 high schoolers at home, and
Hmm.
we all have busy lives. And sometimes I just want to send a message, but it has an impact on the receiver because it may
Yeah,
come on a weekend.
right.
Uh,
Yeah, and you can even schedule far in advance because once she taught me that, I thought, oh, I could put people's birthdays in. I could be really thoughtful.
Very when you have
Could be really,
when you have a lot of time, you can
yeah.
set
When
something
you're, on an airplane one day and you're just gonna batch your birthday messages.
we
So
are
get
changing,
ready, John. It's coming to you
we are changing the world right now, right?
right
Our own
now.
version of AI.
So when you were talking about what you learn from bosses, both good and bad, without naming names, can you think of an example of like a message that something that you witnessed from a manager where you're like, I'm never going to do that?
I worked at a company, a digital company earlier in my career that was on the rise, and the company was buying. I mean, you could probably figure it out if you do a little bit of due diligence, but it was a lot of arrogance. And I was on a team that was driven by arrogance, where the leader just was printing money. We were printing money. So we would put advertiser against advertiser in a room and say, okay, who's going to win this battle? And, that was a time when everything was flowing fast and freely. But I learned from bosses then that try to scare people, and you can yell, you can scream, you can throw things. This is all things that have happened to me. You can try to intimidate people on your team. It's not a motivating factor. It's something that I will never do. There was this need back then to work 24 hours a day on weekends. I remember getting a call on a Saturday night for something that was going to be posting on the front page of this portal on Monday and saying, why did I have to get that call on a Saturday night? And sitting there just wondering about where my life was and
Mm,
how did it get here. And that happens a lot for me. I'm sure it does for many people. Like you
sure.
just stop one day and say, how did I get here? Why am I not having martinis in Malibu at this point in my life? I should be. Um, and you question things.
Right.
But that moment, I remember that Saturday night, I said, I don't want this anymore. And
You
I
knew that clearly.
I knew that really
Wha-
clearly. And I've worked at a lot of different companies. I don't know how many, haven't counted in a while, 9, 10. And I do think we come to a point in our lives when we realize, okay, we're done. Like we've done all we can do, and it's time to move on. And for many of us, moving, changing is not easy. It's not comfortable. And I truly get that. But I think the idea of change, the idea of possibly it is greener pasture somewhere else and can change. And what happened then is after that Saturday night, I ended up meeting somebody who said, I have a job for you. It's a job title
No
decrease,
kidding.
it's a salary decrease. And I just thought, I want less stressful, better life, even though there are limits to it. And it changed the course and it led to where I am today. It led to international adventures. Like I said, running a company
Yeah.
in London, running a network, working with some of the most talented people I've ever come in contact with, both on air and off air. So,
That's incredible. Oh my gosh. And that requires like a leap of faith. You have to have the willingness to make a hard decision like that and
yeah,
say like what really matters. And I remember a coach of mine recently saying, you have to stop proving yourself and start expressing yourself.
I like that.
Right,
Yeah,
that there's a point in your career where you have proven your value, you've collected all of this wisdom and experience and knowledge, And like, you just have to say, okay, from this point forward, I really just want to find opportunities to share my gifts, the things that I think I'm here to share. So I think that discernment on your part, I just love that you were so clear. Like, this is a boundary that I'm not willing to let
I
somebody cross.
I think that's such a smart point. There aren't a ton of benefits of getting older and older and older, but it is, you feel, I'd say my ambition and ego have dropped way down. I want to be with people that I like working with. I want to work with a company, a brand that I am proud of. It may not be the most challenging place I have been or can be, but it's a good path, a good stop along the way to wherever is next. And one thing I have learned is that you just don't know where you're going to go. And I tell people that I'm mentoring, especially people who are out of school, like, you're going to go in places you never expected. My career, never would I have thought I'd be in entertainment. It was never something, it was just circumstance. Being in Los Angeles, meeting some people, and I was ready for a change, and it just happened to be there. So I feel a lot of excitement about the unexpected that will always happen. And it does cheer me on a lot to know that I don't know what's next, but it'll be something totally different and unexpected.
Right.
So
And
that's
trust that.
love.
Right. Trust
Yeah,
that. And
exactly.
that you have value, right? All of us have gifts. I say to my kids, God doesn't give with both hands. So you don't have all of the
Right.
talent available, but you have your unique talent. So figure that out and then go find a way to responsibly deploy that and, bring others along with you. I think that's a good way to win in life is
I
to,
think your
yeah.
idea of generosity, well, again, I don't think it applies to everybody or appeals to everybody, is so important because I get such uplifting just a platform when I see other people around me shining, really feeling great about where they are in that moment. And I have this really tough story. I don't know why I'm bringing it up
Yeah,
now, but
please do.
I have a dear, dear friend who, um, after college, went into the Peace Corps, and uh, she went to Cameroon and Africa, and was just leading this adventurous life. Was on a moped and got hit by a truck. It ended up terrible because she had to be airlifted to Germany. This probably everyone's saying, "Where are you going with this?" But um, she woke up after surgery and lost her leg, and terrible, terrible experience. And I remember talking to her afterward, and she said, Jon, I had two ways to go when I woke up and saw that I only had one leg. It was either be sad the rest of my life or say, I've never been to Germany. This is a chance to see Germany. And that happened a long time ago. And this person went on to have a great, fabulous life, career, that really, I think, was inspired in part by her accident. And I think about that a lot. Like, every day we wake up and we could go two different directions. We are going to have bumps in the road. And I think I had a pretty fairly relatively smooth sailing, and then had some bumps that wasn't prepared for. And I always think about that, like, when things go in the opposite direction, like, I could take I could respond in two different ways. And I always try to take that path of, hey, I'm here. Let's explore what an
Yeah.
unexpected adventure. So,
Right. Thanks for sharing that story. I think it's really relevant because it does boil down to choice, and
yeah,
people might disagree with us, but they might say, "No, you don't understand." And we don't know their circumstances, right? Everybody's story is different and unique, but we do have a choice in how we're going to interpret it. And the whole I've never been to Germany is quite a remarkable shift from the likely story that someone in that situation would be telling. And so if she can do it, we can do it. You
yes,
know?
exactly.
If she can do it, well, I
Right.
can get over the rejection that I just got a half an hour ago. You know what
Yes,
I mean?
exactly. Yeah, it helps. It helps.
Yeah. You are in the midst of a lot of high stakes legal and business affairs at Hallmark Media. What are some of the ways that you see generosity in those environments?
I see it in so many different ways, whether it's a colleague who chimes in on an email saying, John, let me help you with that. Or let's talk offline so we can kind of solve this problem together. So often, I think we're in a group setting and somebody kind of puts somebody else down in a meeting or wants to prove themselves in a meeting. And I think one of the most generous things we could do is say, something, this isn't the right environment to talk about a problem or to talk
Mhm.
about an issue. And we're not going to do it at the proverbial water cooler. We're going to have a one-on-one conversation. I think a generosity at work doesn't just mean, hey, I'm going to stand with you over the weekend to help you finish a project, which is extremely generous, but it is also, listen, I value you. Let me tell you some feedback from this conversation we just had. It may not have come across the way you meant it to, and it unintentionally offended people. Those are hard words to hear, but I think being able to do that in a humane way is so generous. I think that we're in a disruptive media environment right now. The earlier days of television were much smoother sailing. I've used that before in this talk, but now it's not. The disruption is growing every year, cord cutting, people not getting cable or satellite, new forms of video taking over our world, whether it's Netflix or YouTube. We just don't know what's next. We don't know what the future holds for any of us. And I think being supportive of our colleagues, recognizing that not everybody can deal with change or unexpected future as well as some others can.
Mhm.
And just calling somebody up and saying, listen, I know our future is unknown, but you have so much to give. You have so much to offer. Whatever happens, you'll find a way. And somebody did that to me at a past job where I actually was part of a number of mergers, like 4 mergers. I kept getting merged into another company. And then finally my time was up and I had never lost a position. I'd always felt like, okay, life is smooth. I had somebody take me aside and say, you're going to see how great this is. You're going to find something that fits you better. Unfortunately, in our jobs too, as managers, we have to sometimes say, you're not in the right position,
Mhm.
eliminate jobs or ask people to move on. And I think being generous in that situation can mean, hey, I want to help you find something that's better for you, better suited for you. So you're happier. And I will, as long as, they're not mean or they don't do anything really evil,
Right.
to help people find that next thing. And I will always do that for people that are generous or kind or find themselves out of place unexpectedly.
Right. And yeah, we've had a couple of people in transition on ROG, and they've used that term in transition. And I think that's a good way to look at it because they're so employable. They've got all this talent and all of, they're kind and generous and they've got all of these great, hard to find. Like you can't teach somebody how to do that. You can teach someone how to do a role usually. But they're just in transition. Like they were here and now they're going to be somewhere else. But right now they're on the way. And I think it's hard for them to be there because of the need for, to take care of ourselves and to have certainty and that type of thing. But I think it's important to hear you say that when you recognize those types of people, you go out of your way to try to help them find the next best fit for them. And you've invested in who they are and what they do well, which is also a generous thing to do.
I think there's always going to be people who you need to or can rely on. Um, and so that old adage cliche, like, don't burn your bridges, is true because I've been on both sides where I've helped people and needed help, and really that has come in so handy.
So, legal and compliance roles can sometimes be seen as guardrails rather than guides. And so I'm wondering, how do you balance protecting the organizations that you're supporting while also empowering innovation and collaboration?
I think when you say compliance, everybody falls asleep. but
But I mean, how
well,
necessary is it, right? Because you could
that's
even give a
great
plug
point.
for why it's so important.
It is so important. I mean, the rules and regulations, they change from time to time. And it is our job to follow up and understand changes, whether it's privacy, whether it's political lobbying, whether it's international business transactions that require certain rules. Um, there is what I have always believed is that no matter where you are in an organization, lead with the business first. So as a lawyer, I always believe the best lawyers are those who think about the business first, who are able to say, okay, I'm going to help understand what the rules are, understand where we can't go, but how do we work within those guidelines to give the best experience for our audience or help our business forward? And I've had the real privilege of working both on a business and a legal side. And I see the benefits of people saying, hey, yeah, there's some risk here, but that risk is 30% or 20%. And if we get in hot water, this is how we will explain it, or this is where we cannot go. And I will never hesitate to say, you can't do that. I mean,
Yeah.
an example is, we work with talent, on-air talent all the time. And we have to be really mindful of, our business is supported by advertising. When a talent is on air, we have to be careful about making sure what they're doing is not endorsing a product without their approval. And we have advertisers who want to be part of the creative, and that's where the creative and business side of our business is going. And we also have talent who are looking to make a living. And how do we balance those two? And
Mhm.
it's not necessarily a legal thing, meaning there are clear legal lines about what you can and can't ask of somebody. But I will go back to our teams and say, what do you think? If you were this person, um, you don't need to rely on me just because I have an Esquire next to my name. Like, what do you think is the right thing to do here? And often we get into great dialogue and we talk about where are those guidelines? They're not always black and white. How do we manage through those guidelines? And sometimes it's just a relationship issue. Sometimes it's, okay, how do we massage this so that what somebody may perceive as going across the line is really just a new form of creative.
And part of how I'm hearing that, John, is that you are understanding the business. So you're listening to what they're saying the priorities are, where they're trying to go, why that is important to them. So you're really hearing like the substantive issue, and then you're aware of the boundaries. Like this is
Yeah.
too far, so don't even think about that.
Yeah.
But in this range, like it's creative problem solving. That's where innovation comes in, and I really think that's like a critical attribute of somebody who's in all of our roles, but in legal, to say like, I know where the guardrails are, and I'm going to help you be innovative in this in between space. So maybe the business experience that you have had has served you, but I also think that you're listening. So I'm just like picking up on a thread here around your listening.
Yeah, listening, understanding where the business wants to go, not being a barrier to it, but helping our business go. Also educating. I think, like I said, I think we all have the capability of making good business and legal decisions, even if you're not a lawyer, and really empowering people to say, this is something I'm not sure of. Let's debate it. Or in that talent example, where now we have our advertising team coming and saying, John, this is kind of on the line. There's a product in the background. To what extent do we need to get approval for it? And then we talk through it. And I love that moment where we're debating an issue on equal levels, not
Yeah.
because I have a law degree that I know any more than they do.
Sure,
Um,
sure. You all have your role to play,
yeah.
and you're equally sharing, and you're also, I would imagine, the informal mentoring that you mentioned, it might be if someone is an alarmist or who is always catastrophizing things that you might say, like, "I understand your concern, but this is not one of those, like, deal
I
breakers."
rarely have a catastrophizing event. It is so
Okay.
rare,
Yeah.
meaning I get these. And I think I've learned over the years that most things are not that big a deal. They're solvable. What I mean by that, I'll get this urgent call on a Saturday or something like, oh my God, this happened. What do we do? Like, no problem. We're going to fix this. Here's some immediate things, ways to fix it. What's the worst that can happen here? And a lot of what I love doing is putting people at ease,
Yeah.
is saying, no worries. We have to be really careful when people submit ideas. As you can imagine, I used to work at Food Network, and rarely is there a totally new idea. It's just an evolved idea.
Yeah.
At Food Network, we had people come and pitch us food competition shows. And you can imagine there's a lot of the same ideas. At Hallmark, we have a formula around our movies, and that's what I love about it. But that's what also makes it a bit more of following a model. And we have to be really careful because people will pitch us at parties anywhere. And if we actually take them seriously, which sometimes we should, it could get us in deep hot water. And
Mhm.
somebody says, hey, that's my movie. I told you about it at the cocktail party. I'm going to sue you for copyright infringement. And that happens a lot.
Wow.
So part of my goal is to tell people, okay, here's what you want to do in those circumstances. You don't need to come to me every time. These are kind of ways to disarm what could be a very contentious situation.
Yeah. Thank God. I mean, what a nice combo of your legal acumen and your ability to calm people down.
That is a
Like,
lot of
the
what I,
beautiful yin yang. So you mentioned Food Network, which made me think of one of the reasons that you are in the Guinness Book of World Records. Could you share that with us?
well, I mean, certainly my kids are one of my greatest accomplishments, but I'd say that is up there. People debate whether that should be up there, but it is a
I
proud
think it I
moment.
think it should.
So this was a long time ago in college. I organized the world's longest banana split. One of the random pieces of trivia of my life. It was 4.39 miles. That was
Like, people can't even run that far.
yeah, it's 22,000 bananas, 2,000 gallons of ice cream. We had about 8,000 people helping. We did it on a big field. We had a Guinness committee review, and it was all for charity. So when I was in college, the university and community weren't getting along so well. So I had this silly idea, let's do something really big to get everybody together and break a record. Like, let's have a goal. I thought about a big car wash, and then I thought that's boring. And then I thought, what could we do? And I had some
Food.
experience from my high school days. I started the year with my roommates who were engineers, and we built a small banana split on a cardboard tubing, which acted as a dish. And then we multiplied by 20,000, basically. And we
Is
had
it still the record?
no, it's not.
Come
Records
on.
are made to be broken.
I
And a
know,
few
but
years
still.
after we broke our record, another school came and said, we'd like to break your record. And will you be an advisor for us? There were two ice cream companies that wanted to donate ice cream. And one of them, Tuscan Dairies, I will never forget, said, we're going to give you hats and shirts and really help make this a big worldwide event, which it got coverage all around the world. And so I went with them, and the other ice cream company, believe it or not, were willing to donate. They were so gracious, but I had to turn them down. And then they said, we're going to break your record. We're so upset.
Oh my
Um,
gosh.
it was an entire year of prepping. I mean, I could spend all this podcast talking about
Oh my gosh. I
getting
wish we talked about it
donations,
earlier.
and being outside because there was no inside place that was sanitary enough that would
Yeah.
allow this
Well,
snaking of.
almost 5 miles.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So it
That's
probably
incredible.
closest I've come to actually feel like not knowing if I was going to survive when it came down to the last minute, and we had all these people gathered, and we had to have it all made at the same time. So
Uh,
I would
wow.
never do that again.
What a leadership feat. And I love that the impetus was that there was a divide and you were looking for a way to bring them together. I mean, if you think
Yeah.
about, the intent was
Yes.
a generous one, and then that you helped your competitors beat your record. That's just next
Yeah.
level.
I achieved a goal, and it didn't really matter that, yeah, I wouldn't hold it forever. I mean, of course it hurt at first, but then
Uh-huh.
I realized this can't be my crowning glory of my life. I have to go on to find something else.
I'm going to go climb a new mountain. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Well, in our last couple minutes, I wanted to ask you some rapid fire questions. Are you ready for this?
I do my breathing exercise.
Yeah, breathe it out. You're good on your feet, so
Ready. I'm
trust
ready.
thyself. All right, so your first one is, what's one leadership value you refuse to compromise on?
Take honesty, directness.
Excellent.
Yeah.
In a high stakes negotiation, what's your secret to staying calm and focused?
Taking pauses, knowing when things really ratchet up to say, we're not making progress now. We're going to take a break. And it's hard to break momentum sometimes, or somebody feels like they have to get their point across. And I do feel like you leave and you come back to the table renewed, and that helps a lot.
If your legal career were a Hallmark movie title, this is a hard one, what would it be?
Well, I've actually thought about that in my spare time. Let's see. I like The Santa Claus. I mean, a courtroom romance. How about Love in Motions?
Love it.
I could probably keep going, but
Yeah, I can see like the cover already. It's really cool.
yes.
Before I ask you this one, I know you're a Jersey at the core person. Who's your favorite team?
Well, I can't. It's hard to go against the Giants, of course. I am a fan of the Knicks. I wish they, do a little bit better,
Yeah.
but I still believe in them. I just
Mhm.
love going
I know,
to
we have
games.
to be loyal.
Yeah, you have to be loyal to some things. Yes.
Yes. So what's more stressful for you, prepping for a major content deal or watching your favorite team in overtime?
Ooh, that's a tough one. That's really tough. I think overtime in that moment is stressful, but the lead up to a major content negotiation can be a long time stress. Like at least over time, it's going to be done one way or another. Sometimes with content deals or major negotiations, you just don't know when the end is there. So that anxiety kind of persists for a lot longer. But it motivates me. I always had this I could spend a lot of time on expressions. And one was like, wake up with a little anxiety every day and you'll do great. I know that may sound counterintuitive, but I believe like having a little anxiety, a little bit of pressure on yourself
Yeah.
motivates you. And sometimes keeping that anxiety going for a while
Mhm.
has kept me going.
Kept you going. Yeah. And it shows that you care. Well, unfortunately, I know we're out of time and I want to be cognizant of your schedule. I just want to thank you for being you and for sharing these great insights with us.
I loved it. I had so much fun. Shannon, thank you for hosting this incredible podcast. I think generosity in all its forms makes such a difference at work. So if I could contribute to anybody's day, even a little bit, it's a pleasure.
Well, you have. Thank you.
Thanks for listening to ROG, Return on Generosity podcast. Please help us grow by subscribing and reviewing us on your favorite podcast player. And for more information, visit bridgebetween.com. We grow when we give.
우리는 나누면서 성숙합니다.
We grow when we give.
On rayonne quand on donne.
We grow when we give.